EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio. EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio. EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio.
Our Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, Father and lover of our soul, you sit on your throne of mercy and rule with your love and faithfulness. You are full of grace. We acknowledge your presence in our lives. Nothing is hidden in your eyes, even our challenges and struggles in life. We come to you with faith. We ask not only for our daily spiritual bread, but to seek your forgiveness and undeserving favor to heal our land, our family members, our friends and neighbors, even our enemies with COVID-19 and other diseases. Holy Spirit, help us to deepen our faith and see the opportunity to believe, obey, and worship. As we face this pandemic, you are Lord and God. Encourage us and change our hearts, not to fear, but to be full of hope and find ourselves praying and meditating your word. We believe no works of the enemy prosper to your children. Abba, Father, we believe that your Son Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. He is the truth in our salvation. Hear our prayers, O Lord, and most of all, not our will, but thy will be done. We pray this in Jesus' name, the name above all names, who was and is to come. Amen.
Naghahatid saya sa mga Pinoy, mga kanta at programang Tatak Pinoy. Napapanood at napapakinggan kahit saan ka man. Streaming worldwide. In South Manila, this is V81 Radio.
Malayo ka man sa iyong pamilya, dito ay hindi ka nag-iisa. Tiyak ito'y iyong hahanap-hanapin, dahil ito ang nagpapasaya sa atin. Ito ang radio mo, ito ang radio ko. EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio. Dahil mahal namin kayo. EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio. Para sa inyo ito, EP81 Radio. Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan. Oh, oh, oh. EP81 Radio, EP81 Radio. Ito ang radio mo, ito ang radio ko. EP81 Radio, Dahil mahal namin kayo. V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Para sa inyo ito, V81 Radio. Ito ang radio mo, ito ang radio ko. Dahil mahal namin kayo. Para sa inyo ito, V81 Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by the host do not necessarily state or reflect those of the company and its management. Furthermore, the views and opinions of the guests do not reflect those of the host, the show, this station, the management, and the network. Welcome to Pride and Proud Asia, Asia's first online radio show that champions LGBT contribution and leadership in business and in our country and the region. Hosted by the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce, visibility, representation, and empowerment. This is Pride and Proud Asia. Happy Pride!
Happy Pride! Ayan, welcome to another episode of Pride and Proud Asia, where we put a spotlight on LGBTQ plus leadership and inspiring stories in business and beyond. I am your host, your equality advocate, your partner in LGBTQ plus business, the traveling smartpreneur. I am Joff Solas. So this online show is presented by the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce in partnership with V81 Radio Manila. In Pride and Proud Asia, we wish to share stories that will make you see us more, hear us more, and love us more. Kaya samahan nyo kami ngayon sa isa na namang masaya at nakakapagpamulat na usapan kasama ang LGBTQ plus community. So joining me tonight is one and the only attorney at law, attorney Kino Reyes. Happy Pride, Kino!
Happy Pride, John! I'm super happy to be in tonight's episode with you.
Oh, nako, first time natin. Ako, first time ko talaga dito, attorney. So excited for this. And particularly for this guest, nako, ang ganda ng topic. Pero belated Happy Lunar New Year and Happy Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Diba? Ano bang zodiac sign mo?
Kamusta ang New Year, ang Lunar New Year celebrations nyo?
Nako, siguro mas simple kasi syempre, alam mo na, diba? Naabutan natin yung strict pa na protocols ng IATF. So, pero tikoy-tikoy pa rin. Yan.
Good to know. Kompleto pa rin pala.
Tikoy?
Sorry. Yeah, kompleto. Ako rin naman. Nagpatiko rin naman kami. It was a working holiday for me. Marami kasing well, I think it's a sign that the economy is improving. So maraming mga transactions na kailangan tapusin, maraming mga bagong proyekto. So I'm happy for that. Also with the chamber, marami tayong mga projects. So election season na kasi. So ayun, it was a working New Year celebration for me.
Oo, definitely. Nako. So to our listeners and viewers, Kino and I, your colleagues, we're both colleagues in the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So it is an opportune time for us to present this radio program as we strengthen our goal of amplifying voices of the LGBTQ plus business community. So we focus on, first, developing an inclusive workplace environment. Second, championing LGBTQ plus leadership. And third, sharing of best practices across industries and geographic boundaries. Ganun, di ba? If you're watching us live on Facebook, don't be shy to leave us some comments, like and share, and we'll be delighted to interact with you. So, simulan na natin ang ating programa with some of the news headlines. Attorney Kino.
Yes, let's begin with our weekly wrap-up of some of the rainbow news from the past week. So we'll start today's wrap-up or report with Kenya. So if we can
Ako,
share that slide, please. Yes. So Kenyan LGBT students protest suggestion that they be banned from boarding schools. So siguro I think we need to clarify, no, Job to our viewers. So apparently pala in Kenya, very common ang boarding schools where students are sent to school and they live uh, in the school grounds. Versus here in the Philippines, diba, na we usually live at home and then we just go to school every day. So doon baliktad, maraming boarding schools. So the Minister of Education, or Cabinet Secretary for Education rather, in Kenya suggested that LGBTQ plus students be banned from boarding school. So day students na lang dapat sila. Supposedly, ang reasoning daw is mahahawa nila yung ibang mga estudyante if tumira sila sa boarding schools o sa paaralan. So because of that, maraming mga LGBTQ plus students, plus mga allies, their parents, or mga NGOs have decried the protest of na pinopropose nitong Cabinet Secretary for Education. So what do you think about this, Joff?
nako, sabi nga ng ibang friend natin, no, parang hindi ang problema hindi sa atin, kundi sa Kenya. So, if you're going to, talaga, ganyan pa. My God, but this is really, I hope they can do something about this. Kasi, no, Attorney Kino, kasi syempre the younger generations are very, talaga naman, outspoken. They could really do something about it. Tsaka, it's education. So, nevertheless, talagang yan, we just really have to support. Lalo na to, so kudos to our Kenya students.
Precisely. And I think kasi this plays into the very old, very traditional and debunked idea that, homosexuality or, being anything other than cisgender and straight is something na nakakahawa, diba? So, hindi po totoo yan. Just because a student has a friend or a classmate who happens to be gay or lesbian or transgender or bisexual or, hindi ibig sabihin na mahahawa siya doon. So, hopefully ma-enlighten din yung government ng Kenya. Hindi pa naman final yung yung ban na ito. Proposed pa lang. So, hopefully ma-enlighten yung government. Sana hindi na nila ituloy ito. Kasi further na ma-marginalize yung mga LGBTQ plus students sa Kenya kung matuloy ito.
Sabi nga ni Andre, can you believe this? O sige.
Love it. Okay. So there, from Kenya, we'll move on to our second news of the day. Pupunta naman tayo to Pakistan.
Wow.
So in this news naman, Pakistan enforces a new law to protect women from workplace harassment. So in the Philippines, we have a similar law, yung anti-sexual harassment. But in Pakistan, may particular, yung law nila nakafocus particularly to women who are historically majority of the victims of workplace harassment. Pero what makes this new law quite substantial for them is that before kasi yung lumang law nila, yung dinedefine specifically yung victim as a woman. So ngayon, binago nila yon to a person. So that because of that change, nai-include dyan ang mga transgender women who might not have been assigned female at birth. Kaya may protection na rin sila under this law.
So when you say it's person, so does that include already the whole spectrum of LGBTQ+?
Feel ko hindi. Kasi kumbaga yung thrust pa rin ng law is protecting women eh. Unlike, for example, and I have to compare it sa Philippines. Sa Philippines kasi, our anti-sexual harassment law, walang qualification kung ano yung sex or gender ng victim or complainant. So you can be, male, female, intersex, non-binary, whatever. So walang classification. Kahit sino talaga, any person. Pero sa Pakistan, ang aim ng law is protecting women. So because of this, I'm guessing na ang scope pa rin is protect ang women, whether it's cisgender women or and also transgender women now.
Okay. Oh, nako. Sige. What's our next naman? Ako parang feel ko tech naman kung isang susunod.
Yes, our next naman. Ito. So ito naman, from Pakistan, we'll be flying all the way to Singapore in particular. because in Samsung in Singapore aired a series of advertisements to promote their products. And one of the advertisements featured, as is shown here, a Muslim woman and her son who dresses in women's clothes. I'm not sure kung ano yung gender identity nung or gender expression ng anak, whether drag queen yung anak or transgender, hindi naman clear. Pero the son dresses in female clothing, and dun sa commercial, pinapakita na the mother, who is obviously woman wearing a Muslim wearing a headscarf pa, fully embracing and accepting her son for what the son is doing. And actually, ang big news dito is not so much na merong advertisement. Pero after lumabas ng advertisement, nagkaroon ng backlash from some people. So pinull out immediately or quickly ng Samsung yung advertisement. And so may backlash ngayon dun sa pull out from the LGBT community. Kasi na-feel nila na parang nag-cave in si Samsung sa pressure. And lumalabas parang pink baiting lang siya. Hindi tago sa puso ni Samsung, kung may puso man siya as a corporation, yung pag-support sa LGBTQ plus community. Kasi mabilis niyang tinanggal.
True. Nako. Sakit sa ulo yan sa marketing campaign, sa marketing head ng Samsung.
Precisely. Although ako, I mean, I understand naman that the reason daw kung bakit may backlash from the Muslim community is because the ad promotes certain things that are against the Muslim religion, and I'm not Muslim, so I'm not an expert on that. Pero what I understand based on the report is that based on real life daw yung stories eh. So totoong merong, if that's to be believed, totoong merong Muslim mother na merong anak who dresses in anak na lalaki who dresses in female clothing, di ba? So based on reality naman siya. But again, I'm not gonna say whether that's aligned with Muslim beliefs. Pero, I mean, yun nga, Samsung should have either stuck to its guns or maybe from the get-go na-realize nila magiging problematic yata ito. Baka there's a better way to, show our support for the LGBTQ plus community. I'm not sure. But right now, yun, totoo ka, tama ka. Sakit sa ulo lang ang nangyari sa Samsung.
But siguro, I don't know, baka probably they're also looking for a PR stunt, diba? Kasi the mere fact na people are already talking about it, why not, diba? So, baka sa kanila, it's a better opportunity for them to release it. Pero kasi, knowing the Singapore has been very conservative, no? Parang it's surprising kasi this is not just the, kasi meron pang isang another, diba? I know you learned about that model, diba yung sa kanilang OnlyFans model. Kilala mo ba siya? Si Titus Law.
Titus Law, yeah.
Kawawa naman siya. Nag-YouTube na lang. Pero again, siguro, so what can you say on this particular topics? No? Kakaiba, ang iba't iba, pumunta tayo ng Kenya, diba? Pumunta tayo ng Pakistan, tapos ito, Singapore. So all of these things are happening all over and across the world. So, what can you say para in totality, Attorney Kino?
Well, I think, as much as organizations and individuals like tayo in the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce, we try to, do our best to make our world, particularly in business, a more diverse, a more equitable, a more inclusive place. We really can't do it alone. Like all sectors have to come together, business, government in particular, which enacts all of these policies, also communities. So it's a combined effort. So sometimes you win, diba? Like, getting that law in Pakistan expanded, yung coverage. Sometimes you lose. Like, for example, that in Kenya. Sometimes we're not so sure. Like, for example, that advertisement in Singapore. But it's important for me is the effort to try to better our policies.
And at least now, people are talking more about it. Kasi every week, our rainbow news seems na parang it's a mix of both good and bad. Although what seems to be consistent is that there is always an opposition against injustices directed toward the LGBTQ plus community, which I think is a good thing. So kudos to the young Kenyan protesters. Tuloy lang ang pakikibaka, ha? So with that said, we'll go to the commercial muna and see you in a minute. Okay?
See you after the break.
We'll be back shortly. This is Pride and Proud Asia, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Get into the treasure trove of undiscovered music through Napalm, your new all-Pinoy alternative music. Whether it's rock, metal, reggae, soul, or pop, we have it covered. Napalm features upcoming Pinoy artists and musicians, hosted by Lace Jimenez and Thunder God Bernard. So sit back and relax and enjoy Napalm, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
It's a tough business out there. So many uncertainties, operational difficulties, deadlines. We provide the solutions and services that your company needs at the best price guaranteed with our global principles. And experienced partners, we bring solutions to your current and future business. Inolution, supporting your business as always. Video conferencing has never been crucial to your business than ever before. Whether it's work from home or remote work collaboration, productive team meetings are crucial to your business success. So whether it's for personal use or from small to medium to large conference meeting rooms, Logitech has the right solution right for you. With our partner Inolution's track record of responsive service, you can be assured of reliable and effective video collaboration all the time. Inolution, supporting your business as always. To serve you sooner, email us at support@inolution.com.ph.
Now back to Pride and Proud Asia, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
And welcome back to the Pride and Proud Asia. Happy Pride. So to those who just tuned
Happy
in,
Pride,
you are
everyone.
watching another episode of Pride and Proud Asia, a first of its kind program that puts a spotlight on LGBTQ plus leadership and inspiring stories in business and beyond. I am the traveling smartpreneur, Joff Solas. So last week, our episode Scream and Shout, Why LGBT Vote, PH Matters, was about the important role of the LGBTQ plus community in the upcoming national elections. For tonight's episode naman, we will be talking about the power of sex positivity. Nako, Kino, mukhang yata, ito ko tinansya. So, mas piliin natin ang maging sex positive kesa nga naman COVID positive. Di ba, Kino? So,
Definitely, Joe.
kasi talagang nako, na-pressure ako dito. Siyempre, kasama natin si Attorney Kino. So, all right. Simulan na natin ang episode tonight. And let's call in the guest. So, let me introduce the first one, Attorney. So,
Sure.
first, she is a graduate of Business Administration from the University of Asia in the Pacific. After a countless or many attempts of working for a corporate, she took a leap of faith in September of 2020. She launched her adult toys brand, Frisky, with her partner in the hopes of ending stigmas and breaking boundaries. She hopes that through the brand, body exploration and sexual positivity are messages that are cascaded to her audience. Frisky continuously works towards creating a community that champions inclusivity and a community that is safe for all. So let's all welcome Neil Go.
Happy Pride, Neil.
Hi, happy Pride.
Ayan,
Thanks
ang
for having
ganda.
me.
Nakulat ako dun sa
Welcome to
niya.
the show.
Kinabahan ako dun, nakita mo naman, ang sexy agad ni Neil.
Yes. So let's move on to our next guest. So allow me to introduce our second guest. So our second guest graduated from Miriam College with a bachelor's degree in international studies with a minor in gender studies. She is currently taking her master's in women and development in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, while working in the development sector. When the pandemic began, she started an online holistic beauty diary on Instagram under the handle at the Conscious Kikai, where she posts her all local beauty regimen and her advocacies of intersectional feminism, education, and sustainability. So let's all please welcome ABL Bernardo.
Hi everyone.
Happy Pride, ABL.
Happy
Happy Pride,
Pride.
Angel. Ayan. And last but not the least, our third guest is a professional policymaker who has extensive experience advising multinationals in tech, health, food and beverage, and transportation sectors in the future. He hopes to use his public policy chops in advancing the rights of the LGBTQ plus community. In his free time, you can find him spreading his wings. Ako, kinu-challenge ka nito as he performs acrobatic gymnastics, elements, or vogues to the house down boots. He is also a full-time plantita and dog daddy. Yan. He acquired both his master's and bachelor's degree in political science from the Ateneo, where he is a multi-awarded debater and a member of a cheerleading team. So let's all welcome Andre. Buen dia.
Hello. Hi,
Happy
everyone. Good
Pride,
evening.
Andre.
Happy Pride. Belated
Happy
Happy
Pride.
Chinese New Year.
Oh, yeah. So,
I love
welcome
na,
to Pride. Yes, Kino.
I love na Andre came in, tapos meron siyang malaking work, light sa likod niya.
Because I'm in my
Ah.
workroom. This is my home office. So I've turned it into a workroom. And when the light is on, it means it's business.
I love it.
So, yeah, again, guys, welcome to the Pride and Proud Asia. Neil, Abel, and Andre, welcome everyone. Look so fresh and happy kasi kakaiba ng topic natin. Talagang fresh na fresh talaga ang mga to. So, pleasure to have you with us. So, before we proceed to our main program for tonight, interviewin na namin muna kayo ni Attorney Kino. No? So, let's start with you, Neil. Ready ka na ba?
Hi.
Kinakabahan ka ba,
Yes.
Neil? Parang,
Ready.
parang presidential debate. Susunod na tayo, di ba? So, yan. So, what's the story behind the brand name Frisky?
Yeah, so the brand name, I mean, Frisky itself means something playful and energetic. And I mentioned a while ago that we wanted to incorporate it into the brand by making the content as light and as playful as possible. Because, syempre, advertising sex toys it's not an easy feat. It's a lot of people still laugh about it. They still think it's funny or parang kadire, especially in the Philippine context. So we wanted to make sure that people feel less intimidated viewing our content, viewing our posts, as well as our products. So, ayan.
Oh, actually, natanong ko na to kay Neil kanina. Sabi ko, naku, nung nakita ko, nabasa ko, Frisky, ibang pusa pala to, no? So, ano bang reaction mo? No, meron ka ba mga nakukuhang reaction about the name?
Actually, yung reactions naman within ourselves lang, within like the Frisky team, it became like a laughing matter during the first few months of launching the business. But eventually, actually, if you search Shopee, tas Frisky, minsan lalabas pa rin yung cat food na product. So, it was like a long joke na parang ongoing joke before. Pero now we just somehow tried to overcome it by establishing a brand different from, cat food. So, ayun. Okay na siya.
Pero maganda usapin niya, lalo pag tinanong na natin Attorney Kino yung mga pussy, kaya sabi ko, anyway, relevant pa rin naman, di ba? So, anyway.
Jeff?
We lost his
Wala.
audio.
Hello. Sorry
Jeff,
for
you
that.
there? Again.
I'm back. Sorry, yeah. So, of all business that you could have ventured into, why did you choose a business that could be perceived as scandalous or even improper by the general public? Neil.
Yeah. So before going into this business, I mean, I really had no plans of establishing it naman because I also came from corporate jobs. I worked in a law firm, so it's like such a big jump na from coming from that from the corporate world. Um, so growing up, I and my partner we were both raised as like religious, and um, we can say na there's somehow like a gap between what the things we learned growing up. Parang hindi namin fully na-explore yung sexuality namin and our bodies and everything. And we wanted to cascade the learnings that we have growing up to the audience. And what better way to do it than by selling sex toys? And bukod sa nagsisell kami ng sexual wellness products, we at the same time get to advocate for sex positivity and proper sex education din. So, ayun.
O yan, ang ganda ng binanggit mo. Sex positivity. Has it always been your personal advocacy, Neil?
Because I was somehow like a rebel child nung high school, and I was always deemed as wild and parang, ayun nga, parang carefree. And, somehow I was judged for that. But when I graduated, na-realize ko na, there's nothing wrong with expressing myself and my sexual preferences and whatnot. So I think it's something very meaningful to me, and to be able to share it with, the community and the space that we have now is really, for me, it's priceless. So, ayan.
Oo. Anyway, very interesting. Kaya they have to follow your social media accounts, yung tungkol sa frisky na yan, ha? So, anyway, talagang last question ko na kasi excited ako. I'm sure lahat ng mga viewers natin gusto na rin malaman. So, kailan ka ba magpapa-member ng PLCC, ng Philippine LGBT Chamber, para may discount pa kami dyan? Ako si Skin Sensei, Atty. Keynote.
Actually, before going into the show, my partner and I talked about it. Tapos sabi namin, like, pwede tayong we can like have a partnership with, the Chamber of Commerce din para, for future projects, ganyan. We're super willing naman just so we can have, future collaborations together, or we can support yung mga campaigns ninyo, ganun.
Ayan, ang ganda.
Well,
Ako, Atty.
we'll be
Keynote,
glad to have you.
bisitahin mo yung shop niya. Tapos para magagawa tayo mga vlog sensei, mga
Wait,
demonstration.
pero may brick and mortar shop ba kayo, Neil?
Our goal is this year sana. Since 2020 we were based online lang, but hopefully before the year ends we get to establish na yung physical store.
I wanted to ask din that, allow me to ask ito a mainly business question talaga siya. Kasi you opened it in the height of the pandemic, diba? September 2020.
Yes.
So, and it's a shop that sells, sex toys and related equipment. So how was it? Do you think that the circumstances of the pandemic where a lot of people are isolated, with no access to, their partners, did that help you in launching your business?
Yes, definitely. One of the reasons we put up Risky Rent is because we knew that there was still a sexual need na people had to address, and they couldn't really go out kasi may lockdown nga. And it was really helpful then. I mean, I guess it was really helpful because we also presented a new line of toys na they're not really super expensive, as in abot kaya siya. So, mas malaki rin yung reach namin na we were able to provide more choices for consumers. So, ayan.
Yeah.
And your marketing is targeted primarily but to women, or mixed siya?
No, it's a mix of we have a lot of marketing content that's geared towards a lot of to all genders actually, and may mga topics kami tungkol sa vasectomy. We have topics about introducing sex toys in relationships, may it be like heterosexual or LGBT relationships. So, ayan.
Well, thank you. I wanted to ask that because we're going to move on to our next guest naman. Ask questions to ABL, who is, a feminist and studies women, diba? Gender studies in particular. So, moving on to ABL, when did your passion for women empowerment and gender studies began? How did it happen?
I can't really pinpoint a moment where I was like, oh, I'm very much interested. I think it's a constant struggle because I grew up in a family that's very traditional and I have an older brother. So it was very like obvious to me that there's something different about me just because I'm a girl. So starting from then, I was like, it just makes sense for me to sort of dive into the world of women and gender to sort of understand why there are so many socially set requirements or gender roles just because I'm a girl. So I think there's no really one moment, but it's just the whole time that I've been, going through life. It's been something that I've been so interested in.
Oh, that's fascinating. Ay, unika iha ka ba? So you're the only daughter?
Yes, and bunso.
Ah, okay. That's a fascinating story. But I mean, you growing up, I mean, you went to an all-girls school. Am I correct? Or did that help on your?
Actually, I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, so it was a Muslim country pa. So many added social layers to trying to understand my place in the world as a girl. And then I moved here for college, and then it ended up being in an all-girls school, which was Miriam College.
Oh, wow, what a fascinating twist story, I have to say. And um, let's relate that to your beauty blog, no? So in your beauty blog is, I mean, obviously, like for a lot of beauty blogs, the target market or the main communities or people who are active are women. But in your particular blog, you're also focusing on Filipino women in particular because you use all local products. So did you actually set out to do that from the beginning? Na let's focus on Filipino beauty products. What was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, I think there was a lot going on. Primarily, the push was the fact that I started the blog in the height of the pandemic as well. And then I noticed, a lot of brands were reaching out for help, like, we'll hold a sale so we can cover the cost of all of our employees going back home and etc. So I was like, so maybe I should start, putting my money into something more meaningful since I like beauty. Might as well do my part as well in, exploring it. And then as time went on, it became more of it it transformed into something different because now we're looking at how do Filipino brands cater to Filipino skin tones? Why are there more whitening products and more products that look towards brightening the complexion when there are people like me who are proud morenas who want to really show off and showcase their own skin. So it really just turned into a whole advocacy blog as well.
Women of color, di ba?
Do you also feature like women entrepreneurs in your? Because I mean, a lot of the big local brands, I think majority for beauty products are owned and operated by women. Am I correct?
Yes, majority of them are owned by women, and I do my best to try and I sort of have a checklist before I purchase products. So it has to be cruelty free, local, sustainably made. But sustainably made is kind of a difficult thing to look into. But those are sort of the things, and which is also why I ended up eating with Neil. She's one of the brands that I work with as a content creator.
Mm.
May demo ba yan, ABL?
Wala, pero may discount code ako.
I love
Ah,
it. I
si
love how
ABL.
intersectional that blog is, no? So I didn't know na meron pala kayong parang working relationship with Neil. What a happy coincidence.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, ABL. And of course, we have to ask Andre naman. So, Andre, ikaw naman, you come from a very different background, public policy. So, I mean, and we're discussing sex positivity, which is again quite, I would think, divergent. But as a public policy, worker or a professional, if you were to craft a public policy related to this, how and what can you do about it?
I don't think this is a public policy issue, to be honest. It's more like a social conception of what's acceptable in terms of expressing your sexuality. But how I kind of bring some degree of sex positivity into my career is I'm just very visibly gay. In all, like whether I'm meeting with a senator or a secretary, na very tito na probably definitely a boomer, and might have certain biases. I'm very visibly gay. So for me, breaking down their conceptions of what a traditional professional should look like also seeps into how they think about sexuality and expressing that sexuality. It's all interrelated. So the more we kind of break down those norms, even in these very traditional spaces, it seeps into that talaga. So that's kind of how I approach it. I don't think there's a way to have a public policy angle to this. Maybe job creation or industry stimulation for manufacturing of sex toys in the Philippines. I don't know. Baka isama sila sa
May
mga
quality
pesos
of
desk ganon. Or may the expedited reviews sa FDA. Charot. FDA reform. Yung kailangan. Kasi sobrang bagal ng mga approval in FDA. There's always a lot of backlog there. So of course, all of the products that we use for our sexual encounters have to go through FDA. And I think a lot of the new products from the West aren't being approved at the fast enough rate in FDA. So there has to be a reform there, I think, to streamline certain processes.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. No, maybe also a push to provide more incentives or help to female or women-owned businesses, diba? Like Neil, for example, or the businesses that ABL works with, diba? That could help. But I wanted to ask, Andre, you mentioned that you.
Idea. Okay lang ba?
Go ahead. Go.
No, parang naisip ko lang, because there's a lot of stories of people who, kunwari, they have their alt accounts online, then their employers find out about them, and they end up fired because the companies don't want to be affiliated with that. So I think there has to be also some kind of legislation to prevent discrimination against living a sex-positive life, because that definitely does happen. So yeah, that's just another idea. Sorry, you were asking me another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but that's a fascinating answer then. And I mean, as a lawyer, the first thing I think to mind is, could this be constitutional? Can we actually enact a law that prevents employers from doing this? Actually, I'm a bit tricky. Yung mga morality clause in employment contracts are a bit iffy na to begin with.
I'm actually just concerned as well, diba? For example, some of the e-commerce are also selling adult toys, diba? And some of the details of information, baka ma-compromise yung data, diba? Yung information. Sa you, Neil, how are you taking care of your customers' directory? Nako, diba? Baka mamaya bigla na lang lumabas yan na, ganito, si Atty. Keynote, ganito, mas malaki yung in-order niya kaysa sa akin, ganito. So,
Yeah. We make sure naman that we abide by the Data Privacy Act, and not we never disclose any of our customer names kahit na artista pa yung umorder, ganyan. Of course we can't say na uy si ganito bumili ng dildo from our shop. Yeah, like it's such a no. So even
item niya, diba?
even those who are our new staff, because we recently got staff, we remind them na none of the details that you see from waybills, those can never go out then. So ayan.
And related to that, Neil, if I may ask, kasi when you deliver the products, do you take particular care in making the packaging as anonymous as possible?
Yes, of course. it's always been like our main selling point then that we always ship discreetly. So kahit sa anong platform ka nag-order, before, nung hindi pa updated yung waybill system sa Shopee and Lazada, we used to manually erase using like markers or using Photoshop. We erase the item description from waybills. And luckily now, they rolled out a new update for waybills that allow print the waybills and naka-XXX na yung description. For direct orders naman, it's the same thing. We remove item descriptions. Sometimes we remove the shop name upon request of the buyers. So yeah, we always have to consider kasi, minsan nakakatuwa yung mga requests because some of them request pa na, can you remove the packaging, like the box itself? Kasi hindi ko alam paano itatapon. I live with my family. My mom goes through my trash, yung mga ganun. So we always consider those requests from our clients din.
Conscious ako, or actually curious ako, Abiel. So do you have a partnership with Neil? How do you produce your content? Pero bang mga certain items na you are accepting o may no-no ka pa rin?
So far naman, Neil has been great. He's been sending me amazing toys for me to, explore and share with my followers. So there hasn't been anything that I went like, oh, Neil, wag naman ganyan. So far, I'm open naman. And then, regarding creating content, initially I thought it would be flagged. So I do my best to sort of pose as if it's a facial massager or something. So hindi masyadong, like, oh, sex toy yan. Then so far it's getting a lot of good, engagement, and a lot of women are starting discussions in my comment section about the fact na, so this is okay. I don't have to be ashamed. Which is a really great thing to start.
So, for example, wala namang yung parang the flower and the bee, ganun. Hindi naman ganun ang pagkakademo mo. Or you really, how do you, put that
Well,
into content?
since I'm a beauty blog, I if we go through a lot of the tag pictures on the first key account, you see that there are some women who are more embracing of their bodies and use it as part of their posts. But for me, since I'm a beauty blog, match ko yung eyeshadow sa color ng toy, something like that to make it more relevant to the type of content that I post.
That's
Ayan.
fascinating. I have to say, I love the fact matching your eyeshadow to your toy. That is something that is so amazing for me. Andre, how about you? I want to ask you, diba? For example, so Neil and Abiel have been sharing, how they're doing it from the business side of it. From the public policy side, for example, if they ask you, like, assuming that there's a guild of sex toy manufacturers in the Philippines, and they want to get some incentives from government, and they ask you, how can you help us approach government and get some assistance for our sector? Like, what would be your first few yung mga advice to them, or what first few steps can you take?
We need to know the impact first of the industry, or what the potential of the industry is in terms of job creation, in terms of income, in terms of just investments in the country. So we need to know that first, because for you to make that argument that this is an industry that should be valued, you need to have that data. And I'm sure in other markets they've studied it. There are a lot of examples of more robust sex toy industries in other markets, and I think we can always pull from that data, and then try to do some modeling of how it would work here. So that's the first thing. The other thing is to make sure that we're already showing them what potential investments will come in from that sector. So, of course, we've recently liberalized a lot of key sectors with the passage of the Foreign Investments Act and the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, which I think would both apply here. So that for those two bills that just passed, that lowers the starting capitalization of investments, and lowers the employment requirements. So a lot of the smaller businesses from other countries could enter with lower barriers also. So it's really showing them the impact of the industry and what potential there is to improve the lives of Filipinos everywhere. it has to veer away first from the kind of sex positive message, really more economic.
Parang it's impossible really to to approach this without looking at the numbers and the figures and of course the money, which it all kind of boils down to if you think about it.
Yeah. One way we also approach it is we try to look for politicians who have interests that are near the sector. So, for example, I don't know, some manufacturer, some politician with manufacturing. If they have interests in this and start manufacturing locally, it's easier for them to use their own personal and political capital to drive some reforms. So it's finding a way to make the industry pay for the influential people also. They have to have a cut somehow
Kasi di ba no, attorney, kasi we don't know talaga how are we going to help this industry, whether it's booming, whether it's how to develop it further, kung wala naman talaga mga information. And tulad yung may mga legislation, kasi tulad ngayon, mga moral issues, doon tayo nagkakaroon ng struggle, di ba? I don't know, Abel ba yung mga nagko-comment sa mga social media accounts mo, ano to, do you find them, ano ba, okay naman, o may pagka-raunchy din yung mga comments nila so far when you are creating this type of post or content?
So far naman okay, but I think kasi it's too limited because Instagram is very niche. Parang you only follow the accounts that you're genuinely interested in. So I feel like a lot of the people who engage with me are like-minded or like are open to certain topics that I discuss. So I think that's the reason why it's very positive and the reason why it's so engaging and accepting is because they're also
Walang
like-minded
bashers.
people.
No bashers so far?
Wala. I was really shocked na, you know. But I did see someone message me and ask me for my number after that. Siguro akala niya, you know, something could happen there. Pero that was as far as it went. And then apart from that, they're very very open to asking questions further about the topic. So, but ayun nga, it's very niche kasi on Instagram.
Ayan. But so far, your Instagram, you have other social media channels? Do you have TikTok, ganyan? YouTube?
I stopped TikTok and then I don't think I'll be going into YouTube.
Okay. So anyway, talagang we have to follow para makita natin kung ano, curious ako din, attorney, kung paano ginagawa ni ni Abel. Baka pwedeng mag-guest ka, no? At kasama yan of course, sina Neil. Tingnan natin yung flexibility ni Andre kasi sabi nga nila gymnast nga daw to
Okay, pero may
tingnan natin
mag-split daw si Andre mamaya. Okay.
Usang-upa mga collab.
Pressure naman ako.
Ayan. So anyway, actually, let's now proceed. No, thank you again, guys, for all of this information. Kasi let's now proceed to our main program for tonight. So we welcome you to the segment, yung Seryoso Ba Yan? Ayan. So reacting to Filipino netizens' comments on anything sex-related, diba? So basically, we will be flashing screenshots of Facebook and YouTube comments made by Filipino netizens that we found on the internet, and you will be giving your honest opinions and insights. Ayan na. So no worries. Papa is a safe space. Okay, so let's start. Ready na ba? Thank you. Ayan, ako. Gusto natin to. So issue number 1.
There we go. I think siguro we should read this Joff, para lend our viewers can kasi medyo maliit yung text. So Jadine's intimate scene on Till I Met You. So some of the comments are, never like Nadine Lustre. Too young to be kissing her screen partner. Just trying hard. And meron pa nag-like sa comment na yun na 1. And then another comment, biased CBN shows, especially movies, have been promoting immorality, adultery, infidelity, and premarital sex. What makes it worse is they show these in a positive light. Admit it, ABS is always about money, all for a good show and box office. And that comment garnered 24 likes or thumbs up. And another comment goes, too westernized, not good for our young audience. Likewise with other shows promoting indecent act with 23 likes. And finally, your last comment for this subject. If your kids have access to the internet, I'm sure they have seen all the free porn on the web. Do not underestimate your kids. They are more sexually mature than we were. Gabayan nyo na lang ng maayos. So there. So why don't we ask our guests for their comments on these comments? So we're reacting to the comments. Why don't we start with Neil? How about you?
So most of the comments really come from, like, it sounds like, boomers, and their generation somehow looks down on sex education. Or I mean, we must admit na it's television, so a lot of these shows, a lot of the new shows are open to expressing yung mga kissing scenes or sexual scenes, and it just depends on, for me, I think it just depends on per parent kung paano nila papalakihin yung child nila. But I believe, like, the earlier you expose your children, as long as ginagabayan mo sila, the earlier you expose them to scenes like these and you explain to them what's happening, then the better, because they're gonna understand from like a young age the meaning of consent and how they can apply it when they grow up. I don't think there's like a specific age where parents should teach their children about consent, because sex and sexuality, it's like a lifelong thing. So why why stop them from learning about these things? For me, as long as there's proper guidance pa rin with the things that you let your children watch, then it should be okay.
Well, thank you, Neil. How about you, ABL?
I agree with Neil. I think a lot of it is, geared to very traditional mindsets, a lot of the comments, except for the last one. I do agree na dapat gabayan na lang, because at the end of the day, it's out of curiosity, and it's better to have, guidance instead of allowing them to roam free with what, is in the World Wide Web, because there's a lot of things that may, damage their understanding of what intimacy is, of what sex actually is, and they're gonna be carrying that till the rest of their life. Because if they're exposed to such, intense subjects without proper guidance regarding intimacy, I think it'll just really cloud the way that they understand and how to move forward. Because those are those are the years where they're trying to form their understanding of everything, and if the root of their understanding of sex and intimacy is so intense because of all of the media that's available on the internet and in other platforms, I think it'll be very difficult. So ayun.
What about you, Andre?
Actually interesting, because there's been a bunch of policy discussions on content, especially for streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime, and how they're currently unregulated by MTRCB. So there's always questions about, what about the kids? Are they viewing inappropriate content? And I think the answer there is always the key is to give parents choices and the option to be able to curate what their kids are watching, because parents are also in a position to know when they can guide the kids, if the kids are ready for that kind of conversation. Because I do agree naman na it's good to expose them early, but at the same time, maybe sometimes it's too early. Like, there are 8-year-old kids that might be seeing this content online, and it's not, they might not be ready to have those conversations yet, or the parents themselves are still studying how to approach it with their kids, because honestly, half the time parents don't really know what they're doing, right? Especially first time parents, they're navigating what it's like to educate their kids, and sometimes they need time, but then kids get exposed to this kind of content earlier on. I think you just need to be a smarter digital parent, and be able to use the tools that are available, the ones that let you know what kind of media is age appropriate. There are websites that I forget the name of the websites, but you can check certain titles and they'll guide you on that. And then, of course, platforms like Netflix and Amazon, they have parental controls. So it's really maximizing that. But at its core, it shouldn't be about banning artists and the creatives from producing this, because that's art, that's media. It should be free. But as a viewer and as a parent, you should be responsible for what your kids are consuming. Also, don't put the blame on companies like ABS-CBN or GMA for producing this, because it's art. It really should be free. It's just a matter of how can we consume media in a safe way.
Responsible, no? Attorney,
Yeah.
I think, di ba before, pa nagkaroon pa yata ng mga yung tatawag nila censorship, di ba? Kung nagtatanong pa sila, sino ba may hahawak ng mga censorship? Pag MPRCB ba yan? FDCP ba yan? Di ba? So, pero I think everybody reacted because this is Jadine, di ba? Pero I'm sure naman everybody has watched siguro yung mga ano natin, di ba? Yung mga foreign films, di ba? Yung nasa streaming apps din. Na probably could have been, ano ba? Iba yung siguro yung mga series na napapanood natin mas grabe pa, pero nag-react sila just because it's Jadine.
I would agree just because sobrang, I mean, obviously sikat na sikat si Jadine sa Pilipinas, especially to, younger viewers. Although I'm curious kasi one of the comments said na parang masyado bang bata si Nadine Lustre to do
I think
scenes like
actually-
this? And I'm like, isn't Nadine in her
Twenties.
early 20s to mid 20s, mga 22, something like that? Am I correct? So I'm wondering lang,
Yeah.
what age does it become acceptable, diba? Like, that's a tricky slope the
Yeah.
moment you say na, I mean, obviously, meron naman talagang tuyang. Kung menor de edad, talagang hindi pwede, diba? But, the moment you start to say na, if is early 20s too early, what about late 20s, early 30s? But you never really know it. And it's a good thing Andre brought up MTRCB, and also Jeff, diba, na kasi imposible. I've worked with MTRCB before. Like, hindi nila, it is physically, humanly impossible to rate all of the content that is being streamed online, considering na, especially because of the pandemic, we've all shifted to streaming and all these different platforms. So we can't just shift the burden to the government to police or regulate the content that's available to our children. And, at the end of the day, it's the parents who, as guardians of their children, who have the onus of doing that regulation. Mas matrabaho for them, but that's the age we live in.
Nako.
Yeah. Actually, I also had a comment on the fact na you mentioned it's Jadine kasi. I think Filipinos have a tendency to kind of yung mga love teams, the conception is very asexual. It's for the kilig factor. But they don't really fetishize it. It's not in that level. So the moment that they suddenly are sexual beings, it's such a shock. Because in their minds, it was all about the kilig factor, a very innocent love between them. So I think that was also part of the shocker there. I think the concept of love and romance in the Philippines, parang there's no space yet for sex there. Or at least sex hasn't consumed that space in our conception of what romance and love is. So maybe this is the start of something new, this whole Jadine thing, but who knows?
Oo. At saka siguro they should know, no, na parang we're already on diba, yung ating Pornhub status, yung ranking natin. So I really have to really consider this. Sabi ko, baka makita natin may political ads dun, di ba?
And Jeff, I have to say though na yung mga nagko-comment na boomers, parang let's not pretend, okay? They lived through the early 90s when Seiko Films was at its height, okay? Patihim ng Pinya era, di ba? So they would know na it was a lot worse back in the day. Mula tarang you go to a cinema and you see these things. Nowadays, wala na nga sa mga sinehan na ganun eh.
I think it's really a parental guidance. So anyway, maganda talaga usapin natin. Dito naman tayo sa issue number 2 natin. Ako, viral din to, no, recently. So issue number 2, it's Angelica Panganiban sharing her Tinder experience in Antoinette Hadoni's podcast. So, okay, before we see the comments, so let's read muna what she said in the interview for more context. Ayan, basahin natin. So in an interview of director Antoinette Hadoni podcast, Panganiban shared a memorable Tinder experience. Naku, parang, dapat ba, ano ba to? Meron akong expression and emotion. Kakaiba to. Sige, parang wala ako si Angelica, ganyan. So, may isa nun, Tinder experience is ganyan.
syempre, nasa ibang bansa ako, di ba? Tapos she said, tas naghubad. Tas ang laki nung, magbibilip ba ako dito? Nako, direct ha. Magbibilip ba ako? Magbibilip ba ako? O, basahin nyo na lang ha. Magbibilip ako. Tooth. Talaga, ang laki talaga ng tooth. Tapos, sabi ko, oh my God, this is so big. Naghabulan kami doon sa room. Ayoko magpatira kasi ang laki talaga ng tooth. So, ang laki talaga ng tooth. Tapos parang, sure ba? Gago, sure ako doon. Kasi hindi kasya sa akin eh. Ayan.
I love that you really channeled
Same,
Angelica.
Angelica. Same, Angelica. Same reaction. If nangyari sa akin yan, same.
Sasabihin natin si Abel. Abel, o yan. Kasi alam ko, mayroong mga sizes variation to, no? Mamaya din sabihin natin kung paano si Neil.
Oh, wait, yung comments pala, Joff, let's read the comments ng mga tao dun kay, Angelica.
Ayan.
Okay, so read the comments, I feel bad sa boyfriend niya. Di dapat ina-expose yung bagay na yan. Private part yan ng lalaki na dapat asawa or ilaw. At siya lang ang nakakakita, nakakaalam. Tapos ine-expose mo, nakakahiya ka pong maging girlfriend. Sana mabago mo yan. Imagine if siya naman yung nagganyan sa'yo. Sinabi lahat ng bagay sa katawan mo. Mali po yan, ate. And another comment goes, I don't know why you are saying that. No decency at all. Please respect your pagkatao. And finally, third comment, ang tingin ng lalaki sa ibang babae kapag ganyan magsasalita, medyo nakaka-cheap.
Double standards.
Well, let's start with Abel naman, since our feminist and gender studies major. How do you respond to these comments?
I mean, at the end of the day, talaga, it depends on who's speaking. At the end of the day, if Angelica and her partner thinks that this is an okay thing to share or an experience that is generally okay to, make kwento to others, it should be fine. But yes, I do think there's somewhat of a double standard when it comes to talking about, genitals in general. Because I don't think it's as mainstream to talk about, women's genitals that way. So I understand where the first comment was coming from, but the rest of it to make it a personal attack on Angelica, to call her cheap or something like that without knowing the context of where she's coming from, or if her and her partner are okay with sharing these sort of conversations. And I also think it plays into a part because she is famous, she is a celebrity, and I think everyone always has this unspoken requirement that if you're famous, you have to set an example. But sometimes these people don't really, they don't sign up to be an example. They don't sign up to be role models. They sign up to share their personality, their talent. So for them to be sharing things and conversations you would hear in a normal friend group and be called cheap or attacked for it, it's very nakaka-hurt to see this happen to people who didn't even sign up for, to become role models like that.
Ayan. So how about you, Neil?
Yeah, I agree with Abel. End of the day, Angelica's, a person then, and of course, she has her own sexual needs and sexual experiences, and the podcast was marketed towards si Direk Antoinette's listeners naman. I'm sure there's like a specific niche for their followers. So for me, kasi at the end of the day, it's gonna be your choice if you listen to the podcast or not, and if you're offended by it. But I also agree with Abel na she didn't really sign up for herself to be an example for a lot of people. So I think like just for the people who are offended, parang if you don't like it, then don't listen to it or don't listen to her. Ganun.
How about you, Andre?
I think it speaks a lot about how people think about the value of a woman and how it's tied to virginity pa rin. It's a very archaic a way of thinking, right? The Because she's a bit more sexual, it's automatically cheaper or no dignity. Like, why is your sexual purity tied to your value as a human being? Like, that's always been my question. And it says a lot that these things haven't changed. And I think it's because, at least for the older generation, they still don't talk about sex in the way that we do. I think even amongst their friends, it's still hush hush, or very, very few lang. Whereas us, I think we're a bit more loose with our friends and how we talk about sex and our relationships. So I think things are changing. That generation just has to kick it, and then the new generation will come with their new ways of thinking. It's just a matter of time. Changing the way people think about this is always going to be incremental and will have to happen over long periods of time. Because these are deeply, deeply ingrained beliefs. I mean, growing up, we were told not to talk about these things, pa rin. It's just that we were exposed to different kinds of media or different kinds of philosophies and ideologies that make us a little bit more open about talking about this. But then I see really young people who are very open about this, even in ways that I'm uncomfortable with, honestly. Like, I've met 18-year-olds who talk about their sex lives in a very, also, as for me as an adult, I have to step back from those conversations because they're minors. But like, it surprises me, between them, when I observe these conversations happening between them, or even on Twitter, for example, there's so many teenagers who are talking about sex and talking about sexuality. It shocks me, honestly. I'm comfortable, and I believe I am sex positive, but I'm still not as publicly lad with my sex positivity. Because it's still, I was socialized to be uncomfortable with it. I'm still trying to overcome it. But for these really young kids, or really young adults, grabe their openness. So I think things are changing naman. But yeah, these boomers, they're just boomers. Just don't mind them. Stay strong, Angelica. Go, girl. Same reaction ako if I were you.
Well, actually, I think it's another issue din katulad nung kanina sa Jadine, no? Probably it's hard for people to accept that Angelica came to an age and stature na she's really more, kumbaga, confident and comfortable. Nako, syempre, sabi nga niya, ang dami na nga niyang hugot, di ba? So, natural, kung meron siyang mga experience na yan, she can really be, kumbaga, one credible reference, di ba? Nakakatuwa. I mean, people, well, ako siguro, yun din yung dahilan, kaya siguro she got a role na sabi ko nga na it was also trending. Kasi nga, she was talking more about sex positivity. She gave advice, diba? So, I guess she's one of celebrities na she's really, kumbaga sabi nila, you see what you get, diba? So, again, yung tulad noon, it was done in a podcast. Kasi imagine mo kung mainstream yan, no? I doubt naman kung silang Karen Davila o si Corina Sanchez mag-interview sa kanya ng mga ganyan. Baka iba yung ang attack, diba?
Yeah.
I completely agree, Jo. Feel ko yung mga nag-comment, they never even listen to the podcast. Hindi sila yung market ng podcast. They read about the podcast in a news in a news site, and then they commented, diba? So, and this relates to what ABL and Neil mentioned earlier, diba? Like, in your corner of, the internet, in your Instagram account, it's like-minded people. So most probably, in Antoinette Hadaones podcast, so nagkasalita si Angelica, she was like, oh, these people understand, diba? It's fine with them. And it just got picked up by news outlets. And then these other people who are not fine with it read it in these news outlets and commented. So I guess it applies then to everyone. Like, parang speak where you want to speak, find the platform that works for you. And as a listener, if this platform doesn't work for you, then don't listen to it. That's what Neil mentioned earlier.
True. Ayan. So next, naman tayo, issue number 3. So Rappler's article on sex adventures. Before we react ulit the article features a letter written by a person, or si ate girl, seeking help from a professional on her dilemma, whether her sex adventures is becoming problem. Diba? Ate girl daw kasi who was in a relationship, was in another online relationship. Nako, yan, so may offline. Her online relationship, the partner called it quits. Ba? after the breakup with her original partner, ginost naman siya ng kanyang online karelasyon. And this is where her sex adventure started. Now, this is the time when we can talk about setting healthy sexual boundaries with yourself and others. So what do you guys have to say about this?
Wait, let me just, Joff, let me just read the comments. Kasi we have 3 comments here. Actually, 4 pala. So some of the comments are, so from commenter number 1, keep tolerating these normalized, in quotes, practices, and we'd end up in a degenerate society. So that has 55 reactions to it. Some positive, some negative, like laughing. Comment number 2, get it, girl, go get that eggplant, with 77 reactions to it. And then we nag-comment kay commenter number 2 saying, what an advice. And finally, commenter number 3 said, nymphomaniac, sakit po yan, she needs help.
Grabe. O, yan. O, sige. Double standard. Ngayon, unahin naman natin si Andre.
I mean, they suck. I like si ate girl na go get that eggplant. Because honestly, it doesn't affect you. Bakit kayo sobrang affected na magka-comment pa kayo ng something very negative? You don't even know the person.
No
Hindi na to
bashing.
celebrity, Hindi na to celebrity. Hindi na siya si Jadine. Hindi na siya si Angelica. They're not role models in any way. Like, if you don't want them to be a role model, just don't treat them like a role model. It's their life. Let them live it. So there's this one line from a really good TV show that I love. It's called Steven Universe. And parang one thing that Steven asked one of the villains there is, if you just let others be who they are, maybe you can be who you are. And I think that as a society, we should really just try our best to let people be who they are, because it's their lives, and sila yung magsasuffer ng consequences of their choices naman if it's bad or good. And obviously, she doesn't feel like she's suffering because she seems very proud of her prowess in bed. So just let her enjoy that and feel her oats. Kung hindi mo trip, edi just don't comment, leave it. Like, if you have nothing good to say, just don't say anything, dude.
How about you, ABL?
I agree for sure with what Andre shared, but I also think, it's something about the people need to understand nga na, your sexual journey is very personal. It's unique. Just because it's not, what I abide to or what you abide to, and you see someone practicing it differently, doesn't mean they deserve judgment. But, at the end of the day, your sexual journey should not depend on what others think, but definitely on what you and your partner or partners have discussed. As long as it's consensual, it's safe, and it's, you're enjoying, then why not? I just feel like people need to stop subscribing to, the society's norms na one partner at a time, or like your partner only once you're married. I don't know. It's a very different time now, and people need to embrace that sexuality is a part of them, and not a part of you that you should, push aside and deny until it's too late, and then you have a whole lot of pent up traumas and mental, questions that you aren't gonna get answered.
Ayan. Thanks, ABL. How about you, Neil?
Yeah, I think it also all boils down to the Philippines being such a religious country. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of our practices are heavily influenced by the laws in place or the religions that we follow. And it's kind of sad that until now there are a lot of people who shame people for wanting to express their sexualities and wanting to share it online. But I think it also relates back to early in the days when things like kink shaming or shaming people because of their preferences. Parang it somehow relates to it because people who explore their bodies were deemed as abnormal people. Parang it was also related to genetic degeneration. I remember there was a study before na people who explore their kinks and who are super sexual back in the 1800s pa to, they were labeled as abnormal, and it was always viewed in a negative light. So instead of people coming forward to talk about their um, their sexual preferences and their sexual needs, or if they have problems with their kinks nga, let's say naging issue yung kink, parang instead of people being brave enough to come forward, they tend to like hide behind because they're afraid of judgment na hindi ko na lang sasabihin kasi parang I'm experiencing this and I'm like, am I a nymphomaniac? Instead of saying, sharing their experience, mahihiya sila because people will judge them instead of like offering help or offering places to go to talk to people about this experience you had, ganon. So, yeah.
Ano mo, napansin mo, guys, no, even Attorney Kino, you can say, parang lahat yung mga nakuha natin, kasi puro sila babae, no? If you discover na parang what if kung yung mga lalaki yan, di ba, nagsabi niyan, parang, uy, sikat siya, di ba? Minsan pa nga parang kung mag-usap-usap. Again, probably it's about our double standards, machismo effect. It's just really a shame, no? Kasi parang lalo na sa mga babae natin, na parang the more that they are more expressive, the more vocal they are about this particular topic. Syempre, 'di ba, sabi nga natin, women empowerment. Para magkakaroon ng women empowerment if you keep them silent. 'Di ba? Tsaka siguro, how would you know as a man would be able to satisfy your female partner? 'Di ba? 'Di ba, dapat malaman mo rin naman on the point of view of women, how will you be able to satisfy them? 'Di ba? What can you say about Abel about that? Tama ba? Dapat malaman natin parang what nga naman yung mag-work sa inyo.
Yeah, I think that's also very important in, when you dive into relationships. And I also think very valid yung nga yung double standard. Like earlier on dun sa Nadine na comment, no? Diba, they were saying that Nadine is too young, but isn't she the same age as James? So why are you only pointing the finger at the girl?
Naku,
like,
Abel, mas excited sila makita si James.
Yun nga may standard na ganun kasi. So, I feel like sobrang daming things to learn and also unlearn in regards to, what we have as a Filipino community and society in order for us to move forward when we talk about sex positivity and lessening the chains that women have to bear from their day-to-day.
Ito, ewan ko dito, Andre, kasi syempre we're talking about women. Paano pa kaya kung members of the community of the LGBTQ+? Kasi recently naman, 'di ba, tulad niyan yung isang celebrity comedian natin si Vice Ganda, nagme-mainstream din naman ang kanyang relationship and probably, 'di ba? Kaya lang baka it might be different ba? How do you guys see it na there are now more LGBTQ+ celebrities or personalities sharing their intimate moments or probably their relationship to the public?
I think the bar for the LGBT the standard is a bit different because generally we're considered sexual deviants pa rin, like in the Philippines. So it's not as shocking to people when people in the LGBTQIA community are promiscuous because even the media portrays us as promiscuous. So I think it's not as shocking. There's a little bit more space for those conversations from the LGBT community than women. Actually, in the area of sex, I think in the Philippines, I would say gay men are still more privileged than women in those conversations because women are really held to a different standard. So even within the LGBT community, by the way, I think there's also a difference in the standard for people who identify as male and people who identify as female. So I think it's not a sexual orientation or identity rift. It's really a gendered rift, and it exists even within the LGBT community. Yeah.
Siguro ang issue lang naman pagdating naman sa LGBT attorney Kino is yung kung totoo nga ba na sila, 'di ba? Kasi parang sometimes baka may screen lang yan. Ang dami kasi din mga, 'di ba, yung mga YouTube content creators, 'di ba? Na parang kini-clickbait lang yan. Well, again, it's probably scripted or it's an eye opener ba? I really don't know. Pero I mean, this is not just isolated to the LGBTQ+ kasi syempre meron din pa rin mga yung mga on and off screen, 'di ba? Kung totoo nga ba sila ay mag-partner o hindi. Pero again, when people are talking more about it, probably it's a good indication that that particular execution was effective, 'di ba? Kasi kung wala namang pinag-uusapan, 'di ba? Kung hindi ka pinag-uusapan, sabi nga nila, good or bad publicity still is publicity. So hangga't pinag-uusapan ka, you're still on top of the game, 'di ba? Umattend ka man ng debate o hindi, basta leading ka, ganun pa rin sila ang pag-uusapan nila. So bahala na sila sa buhay nila. Pero syempre, yan, how can we educate close-minded people about sex positivity? Sabi ni Angel Romero.
One of our listeners.
Lalo na yan. Ako, active yan. Active. The activist. Diba?
Why don't we, why don't we
Yeah,
direct
I
this
honestly
question
think
to
it's
Neil? Sorry,
Okay.
Andy, you were saying?
Sorry, I was just gonna answer na agad. I'm just gonna say, you just have to keep talking about it. Like, normalize it talaga in like daily conversations. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to face the discomfort. Sorry, I overstepped there.
No worries.
I was going to ask Neil, because she's the one who has a business related to this. So how do you respond to that question?
Yeah, a lot of a lot of our posts are super specific. Like, we would always make sure na at least one person can relate to it. Like, let's say, how to be a sex positive parent, ganyan. I think to educate people who are close-minded, it has to start from home. I believe parang parents need to have this sort of understanding na children right now are growing up in such a different generation, and if you as a child, you have a like close-minded parent, then you can tell them na parang this, why can't you talk to me about my body parts, ganyan. Because ako, personally, growing up, I wasn't really introduced to the proper names for my body parts, and like it's always the birds and the bees and the flowers and diba? So you start from where you are, start from home, and like you start by saying the proper names for body parts, and start by respecting the privacy of your child. If you're a kid going through growing up and having a parent na sobrang like you feel na nasasakal ka na, and you feel that you're not being able to express yourself at home, then I think it's nice to take your stand as a child then na parang I have my rights, because sex education is like a human right, then everybody needs to take part in it. So yun, I really think you need to start from home.
Yan. Nako, this is a very enlightening, talaga, very enriching discussions. So thank you, Neil, Abiel, and Andre. This was such a fun conversation. I know our audience are very enriched and full of information. We hope you enjoyed your time with us as well. So, Kino, before we go to the second, before our sponsors, yung ating mga supporters, so basically, how to sum it up on your point?
Ako, I see this as like hindi naman siya dichotomy, pero on the one hand, we've learned from our guests, we should mainstream sex positivity. So whether you're straight, whether you're gay, or anything, anywhere in between and outside of those, whether you're a man, woman, intersex, or non-binary, it's something that we should talk about in order to be comfortable to discuss the topic. So whether it's with our friends, which might be easier, or maybe with some people where it might be harder, with our parents or our colleagues, of course, in the appropriate situation. So there's one, mainstreaming it. And I personally believe also in safe spaces. So I know, especially for women, talking about these things can lead to some comments like what we read, where women in particular are being disparaged. So I believe in creating safe spaces, in particular pockets of the internet and in real life, where people can discuss freely without having to deal with, all this backlash. So for me, it's finding the right balance so that we can all feel safe in discussing these things and move forward as a society.
Ayan. So thank you. Thank you, Attorney Kino. Thank you again now, Neil, Abiel, and Andre. So let's take a quick break and we'll see you in a few minutes.
We'll be back shortly. This is Pride and Proud Asia, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Here now now is the program for the millennials that will showcase young professionals' worth, aspirations, and successes in doing what they believe is right, progressive, and inclusive. Join them as they discover the path to self and societal fulfillment while making a difference. Hosted by empowered and cool millennial Erica Mizon, together with her fellow millennials, they will be making a difference. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Video meetings are the future of collaboration. Meetings are like people. No two are ever the same. Logitech provides better meetings where everyone can be seen and heard, because great meetings just don't happen. Logitech, with our partner Inolution, ensures your video collaboration is at the next level. Inolution, supporting your business as always. To serve you sooner, email us at support@inolution.com.ph. Big Media is all about life's journey.
Yung mga yun, mga bata pa sila dati nung nakakasama ko sila. So ngayon, sikat na sila. Kaya
In digital, entertainment,
maraming salamat po na nabigyan niyo kami ng opportunity.
information, story, inspiration, and experiences. Whenever, wherever you want, welcome. Join us as we push the boundaries of possibility here with Big Media.
Now back to Pride and Proud Asia, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
So welcome back, everyone, to Pride and Proud Asia, and shout out to everyone listening right now. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Welcome back.
Oo, hi, Atty. Kino. Sige. You're supposed to... sabihin
Welcome back to our guests. So before we wrap up our episode, though, we just like to remind everyone that one of the thrusts of the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce and of this show is to inculcate, and especially the members of the LGBTQIA+ community, #Pride every day. So February is LGBTQ+ History Month in the UK. We don't have that here, but we do have Pride Month in June. But our goal is to make the LGBTQ+ community celebrate Pride every day. So hindi lang siya 1 month out of the year. And hopefully for our allies, for our guests, they can also join in celebrating Pride every day by advocating for and supporting LGBTQIA+ owned businesses, initiatives. That would be great. And for our viewers, if you would like to be featured or to promote your business in our program, we will gladly give you a platform to shine and be an inspiration for everyone, our Pride of Pride feature. So if you would like to be featured or share your story, you can get in touch with us, with the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce. As you can see in our social media assets, our website, and our different social media accounts. You can also get in touch with the 81 Radio Manila through their social media accounts. So this is really your platform. We would love to listen to you, to learn from you, and to feature you. So we will definitely be featuring more inspiring LGBTQIA+ stories. Contact us, and we hope to see you on the show.
So before we officially close our episode for tonight, maybe Neil can promote her business and Abel to promote her beauty blog as well, and Andre.
Yeah. So, if you guys wanna explore your bodies and learn about sex positivity, like really lightly, and maybe apply it to everyday lives, you can visit our Instagram, our Facebook, and Twitter. It's all at Frisky Unlimited. And we do have a website. It's http friskyultd.com, and as well as Lazada and Shopee platforms. So yeah, guaranteed naman kasi strict deliveries. Sorry.
Ayan. O sige, Abel.
First of all, thank you so much for having us today. And then I think the first thing I should plug is you can definitely use my discount code on Frisky and on all of their platforms. It's Frisky for 10% off. And then please do follow me on Instagram, The Conscious Guy, and
Nako.
there seems to be a problem with my
Sorry to cut you, Abel. Is it static, no? Static kay Abel.
But just
Oo.
to remind everyone, if you want to reach Aviel, you can check her out on Instagram at The Conscious Kikai. So TheConScious Kikai, Kikai. So please check her out there.
Ayan. How about you, Andre? May vlog ka ba?
Well, no, I mean, I just have my Instagram account, Andre Buendia. If you guys want to follow my dogs, it's Real Grace and Frankie. If you guys want to follow my plants, it's Glamazon PH. So, yun lang. If you want to keep track of my kalokohans.
Ayan. Welcome back, Abel. Nako, static ka ba? Let's test out. Ayan, sige.
Okay na
You were
ba?
mentioning.
It's better.
Oh, ayan. Clear.
Okay, hi. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And then I think the first thing I should plug is definitely the fact that I have a discount code for Frisky. Please use code FriskyABL for 10% off on all of your purchases on Frisky. And next, please do follow me on Instagram. You can engage with me or just, message me for any discussions that you want to have and feel like you don't have any other space to talk about. My DMs are definitely open, so feel free to, follow and message The Conscious Kikai on Instagram. Thank you!
Ayan. At Conscious Kikai, tapos remember, yung Frisky, may 10% discount si Abel. Yes,
And I love, Jock, I have to say, I love the fact na merong collaboration with Aviel and Frisky.
Yeah.
Because we can all agree that
with Attorney Keynote tsaka ni Andre.
Sige, may affiliates din kayo, affiliate codes.
Importante ang mga collabs ngayon kasi it's more than video collaborations in particular are more than a trend. So it become an important part of every business operation. So whether you're doing online meetings one-on-one or meetings with your entire team and customers, everyone's voices and ideas need to be heard and to be seen. So with Logitech's video collaboration solution, you know you are getting the very best for your business. So please reach them at support@innolution.com.ph. That's Innolution, INNOLUTION.com.ph for all your business needs.
Yeah. So, okay there. We have it. Joining our Papa episode. Pride and Proud Asia is here for another season with more exciting topics and amazing guests. Kaya watch out lang ha. So watch us live every Saturday at 6 p.m. Facebook and YouTube at V81 Radio Manila. Then we have a www.v81radio.com, Amazon On Demand. Download the V81 app. Meron ka na ba niyan, Atty. Kino? So you may contact us through email address prideandproudAsia@gmail.com. This radio show is presented by the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce in partnership with V81 Radio. So thank you for joining us today and catch us next week here in Pride and Proud Asia. Once again, so this has been Joff, the Traveling Smartpreneur. So just visit as well yung www.culturahub.com. Follow me, Joff Solas, across social media. Ikaw naman, Atty. Kino, makita nila yung abs.
Next time na lang. But this has been Chino, your hot attorney at law, reminding everyone that kapag may katwiran, ipaglaban natin. Magkakasama tayo sa laban na ito. So thank you to all our guests and happy Pride to everyone.
Oh, happy Pride, happy Pride. Thanks, Nia, Aviel.
Thank you.
Ayaw, bisahin nyo. Follow nyo yung
Bye.
Frisky. Tsaka si Andre.
Welcome to Pride and Proud Asia, Asia's first online radio show that champions LGBT contribution and leadership in business and in our country and the region. Hosted by the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce, visibility, representation, and empowerment. This is Pride and Proud Asia. Saturdays, 6 p.m. Philippine time. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Happy Pride! Tunog Pinoy, Tatak Pinoy, your all hits, all Pinoy digital radio station in South Manila. This is V81 Radio.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan. V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Ito ang radio mo, ito ang radio ko. V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Dahil mahal namin kayo. V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Para sa inyo ito, V81 Radio.